Faraz Siddiqui and Sean Allen, we're thrilled that you're joining us, especially with all the competition out there. Football has obviously started again, and I got to tell you, I'm not a huge sports fan. I know Sean isn't, but what we really do support is all the people who are out there who are able to live. Sean and I are both advocates of the labor movement and the hardworking men and women who are out there putting together a product. So thank you to all of you guys for, first of all, it's been a hard time, right, Sean?
It's been crazy times. Obviously, everyone's been going through a lot, and it's good to have sports back. Like I say, you're not going to find me watching too many Bears games on Sundays, but all the people that go in behind what makes sports happen, we have to celebrate because they're out there making what we all enjoy happen every Sunday, every day, and every week.
You're absolutely right. And the people with Live Events Coalition, people in the sports production world have had a very unfortunate hiatus and interruption in their life and their work. So we're glad that that's kind of resolved itself. To that effect, I'm very excited that we have a guest who was a sports producer for multiple years. He's worked in broadcast, and he's going to kind of give us a little bit of a highlight into what that's like. And that's Barry Hohlfelder, who will be joining us today. If you want to talk to Barry as well, he's worked at WBBM Channel 2. He's worked at NBC Chicago. Please do call us in. That's 773-763-9278. Barry, you're with us. Raza Siddiqui, Sean Allen, Life, Love, and the Grind.
Thanks for the invitation. I really appreciate it, and I concur with what you're talking about with sports coming back. I watched the IndyCar race earlier, and they actually had some fans at the road course. So things are slowly getting back to where we can appreciate the competition again.
Tell me about, talking about racing, tell me about the Indy 500, because early on in your career, you actually were somewhat of a pioneer in getting that televised. Is that correct? And not even televised. What did I hear about these were pre-produced and then sent out to movie theaters? Things are completely different than what I know. It's all on its head. Tell me about that.
No, it was the actual race, but it was before television got the contract with the 500 people. So we satellited to theaters around the world and filled theaters. People came in because they used to just listen to the race on radio, but here it was on a big screen live, and it was very exciting for a lot of people. And I remember one year we had a rain delay, and we had to fill for at least 8 hours, if not more, which was a real challenge for the talent. But it was a great time. I still was involved with auto racing up until my retirement. Fortunately, NBC bought into auto racing, so I was able to return to my roots.
So, okay, let's actually start with how you got into television. Barry, you are retired now, but you've been doing this quite a while, having worked at WBBM, also with WMAQ. Kind of tell us how your journey began, how you got into television, and what I would define as the heyday of television, where there were resources, where there were commitments, where there was basically a legacy on telling a story and telling it properly.
Not as much competition, right?
That's a good point.
I mean, in today's day of social media and Facebook and so many different outlets, that was kind of all what you had.
Hey, Barry, paint us a picture. Paint us a picture about what it was like, because you're right, it was probably harder to get a job without that competition, too, right, Barry?
Yes, well, it was a very, very different time. There was no social media. There was no internet when I started. I graduated from Butler University in 1966. My first job was as a director at Channel 6, which was the flagship station for the closed-circuit broadcast of the race.
Now, that's Channel 6 in Indianapolis, correct?
Right. It's now WRTV. It was then WFBM TV. A wonderful place to work. It was then a Time Life station. I'm not sure what their affiliation is now. But I thoroughly enjoyed 3 years of directing news blocks and doing sports, and did a couple documentaries. But my dream was always, from the time I was a kid, to work in broadcasting in Chicago. I grew up on Chicago Kids Television and Chicago News. I was like a 10-year-old news junkie. Len O'Connor was one of my favorite personalities.
So I want to tell you, Sean, a little about Len O'Connor, because I had no idea who that was, too, so I don't blame you for not knowing. Mm-hmm. But evidently he was kind of a pioneer, not only in cut-ins, network cut-ins on the Today Show, but also directed or delivered commentaries. Is that correct? So at the 10 o'clock newscast, he would actually give a color, a bit of editorial content. Is that how I would best be describing this to Sean?
Yeah, that's how he evolved. He evolved into being a commentator, and his signature was at the end of every commentary, he would say, "And I am Len O'Connor." And people remembered him for that forever. That was his trademark. But he was a pioneer in Chicago television. And when I finally got to Chicago, my first choice was to work at Channel 5 because I was more familiar with some of the people there. But I had an offer first from Channel 2 to become a news writer, and I grabbed that up immediately. And
well, how difficult was it at that point? Like Sean was saying, there weren't a lot of places that if you were a journalist, you wanted to exercise broadcast journalistic skills that you could go to. There were a couple of the big networks. I don't know, maybe WGN didn't even have a newscast. You can tell us if they did or did not. But how competitive was it to get that job at WBBM? And then again, how many writers were there? I mean, that must have been completely different too.
Yeah, I would guess there were maybe a half a dozen writers there. What we always were taught in college was to try to start out in a small market. And Indianapolis was kind of a major market, but not the size of New York or Chicago. So you get your experience there. And I decided that if I was going to follow my dreams, I had to leave Indianapolis and come up to Chicago. I did, and it took me 8 months to land a job, so it was not easy. But jobs in Chicago, particularly in the news markets, were highly sought after, and still are. It was a dream come true, really. And after about 6 months of being a news writer and writing for a very young Bill Curtis, I was promoted to a producer, and that's where I really got my start and a lot of experience.
Well, I think it's absolutely phenomenal how you've climbed the ranks from going from WBBM to WMAQ and finally making it on Life, Love, and the Grind and sharing your experience with us. So
the big times.
So we do applaud you for that. What we do want to get into a little bit, we will get back into your experiences. Obviously, you were a sports producer for quite some time. Things have really changed with this whole virus. The way stuff was covered, we didn't even know if sports would come back. But as we're driving in, football is being played, on the opposing dial to us, but we're glad you're listening in here. Tell us from the people you connect with, stay in touch with, people that our listeners would know, what you've heard. Throw some names out there. Why not?
About what's going on with sports today?
About what's going on with sports today and what the general feeling was like for the last 4 months since March, when it was just a scary time in the whole industry.
Well, I was sort of out of touch with, along with everyone else, because I've been retired. But I do note that a broadcast that I originated with Greg Gumbel back in the mid-'70s, Sports Sunday, has gone to a fraction of what it was because they just don't have the content to fill a half hour. So I note that Sports Sunday is about half the length of what it was. That's the biggest change I've seen, except that, we're watching sports with no fans in the stands. I watch golf, and to see these golfers out on the course with no gallery there it's very strange. And the golfers themselves have commented on the fact that it's just not the same. And everyone's anxious to get past this pandemic and get back to a real life. And I think it has more effect on sports teams than you might imagine.
So tell us a little bit about what goes behind all these events. I mean, there's obviously so many working people that make all this, a reality, and, the sports people getting laid off or being out of work, that's tough, but these are multi-million-dollar athletes. I mean, can you explain a little bit what it's like behind the scenes for your everyday working man in the television business that kind of makes everything we enjoy possible?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the protocol is for covering practices now, but when I was a sports producer, I'd begin my day starting out covering Bears practice at Hallis Hall, and everyone from all of those stations would have their sports crews, their camera crews, and producers and reporters there. We'd have access to practice for video purposes for just a few minutes at the beginning of practice, and then they all pushed us back into the press office, and we had to wait till the end of practice, and then we'd have access to the locker room and do our one-on-one interviews with coaches and players. And it was pretty similar with covering the Bulls. At first, the Bulls practiced at a multiplex in Deerfield. It was a health club for all sorts of normal people, but the Bulls would have a area set off with their own practice court, and in those days you could grab Michael Jordan and do a one-on-one interview before or after practice, and the access was unbelievable. Now, they've gotten more sophisticated, and of course, they were very successful. So it's harder to get exclusive interviews with any of these personalities. You've got to go through the PR people. And like I say, I would imagine that access is restricted even more now with the pandemic. I doubt that they'll have that many reporters available at any given time.
Barry, so we're going to take a moment and just kind of explain what Sean and I are trying to do for the month of September. Life, Love, and the Grind is always a show that's very supportive of labor and labor issues. We committed this month, starting off after Labor Day, saying that we are going to bring in as much as we can to give perspective of labor in different industries. Sean Allen working in the building trades himself, myself in communications. And Barry, again, we are very excited to have you because not only are you kind of a pioneer in Chicago media market, but you were for multiple years what was known as, I am the vice president of NABET. You were what was known as a NABET crew. Back in the day, the camera operators, the producers, just about everyone, the editors were NABET. Kind of talk about what that meant to you and what quality that came with.
That was the biggest change I experienced when I came up from Indianapolis. At first at WBBM, all of our technicians were IBEW, and then I joined NABET as a NABET news writer when I went to NBC, initially in New York and then in Chicago. And to me, I reap benefits to this day. We negotiated great agreements for retirement with NBC and GE and initially RCA. The union was very strong and got along very well for the most part with management, especially early on with RCA. GE was a little more difficult to deal with as time went on, but I'm so pleased. I wouldn't have the retirement that I enjoy now were it not for NABET.
So, Sean, pensions. I mean, you and I have very different worlds in terms of labors, but the pensions, like what Barry was saying, his retirement, it's kind of what we fight for throughout all of our trades, right? Kind of tell me about any perspective you have with that.
Well, it's absolutely what we all fight for every day. And especially now. I mean, if we have seen anything come out of this coronavirus world, we've seen the importance of our essential workers, who majority happen to be union workers. And in Chicago, we have the strongest labor force in the world, and we're the strongest union density in the world. And it's such a proud union history from really the start to where we're at now. And like you say, everything we're fighting for is just so, men and women and Barry, so you can retire and enjoy your life and have a nice pension and have health insurance and everything that everyone deserves. We're not meant to work 60 hours a week for our entire life. We're meant to retire and
enjoy
sit back and enjoy
right?
life. Yeah, sit back and enjoy life, and that's all unions have fought for. So it's great to be part of this history in Chicago, and it's great to see all the different perspectives as building trades. I mean, we work in construction, and you see the city skyline. It's gorgeous. I mean, every high rise, every building going up is proud with union members.
And it's interesting because when we first met, we were both part of the labor movement, but knew very little about each other's trades, right? Like I would be what I guess you guys would consider a soft trade, if even that. It's more of a guild, it's more of a collective of writers, technicians. But again, the value of what we do is we're out there fighting for livelihoods, for fighting for family, fighting for the rights for people to be able to support their families, much as you are, which is the ultimate guiding principle.
Well, and just bringing us all together and bringing different unions together, and seeing how we all stand up for each other, we support each other, and when you guys strike or when we go on strike or pickets, and the labor movement's so strong and sticking together, and that's why I like doing these crossover shows, and it's good to hear perspectives, especially of yours, Barry. We appreciate you coming on, of seeing the kind of the changes over the decades, but staying strong even throughout all these years.
And I think that's one of the fundamental things that we need to get into. Your trades have obviously seen some evolution, some changes in workflow, that type of thing. I think no industry has seen that influx as much as broadcast. I mean, you had real commitment to resources. You had real commitments to personnel, to telling a story. We're going to get into a little bit of that with Barry after this commercial break, including how easy it was to get on a flight to go somewhere to cover a news story. There was no, doing it halfway. You guys had commitment to go out there and tell a story. So, Barry, I'm going to have you think a little about some of your experiences doing that as we hit this commercial break.
Life, Love, and the Grind is proudly sponsored by Rich Lewandowski and our friends at Breaker Press, Chicagoland's top choice for union printing. We're a third-generation family-owned business that has been helping unions and political campaigns win since 1976. We've been involved in hundreds of winning elections, and we get our printed materials to you on time and on budget every time. Whether you're running for the courthouse or the White House, we will take you from concept to design and from print to mail or your supporters' front yards. Breaker Press can help you reach the voters you need. Call Rich at 773-852-5733 or email rich@breakerpress.com. For all of your political printing needs, visit us at breakerpress.com.
Megan Financial is an independent retirement and financial services firm dedicated to the working men and women of organized labor. Megan provides straightforward, custom-fit financial advice and specializes in defined benefit and defined contribution pension plans, as well as participant and retiree health and welfare benefits. Megan Financial has the knowledge and experience to navigate the union member through all phases of life. Call 708-444-1090.
Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisors LLC, member FINRA, SIPC, a broker-dealer and registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Office location at 5321 South 94th Avenue, Orland Park, Illinois, 60462.
All right, if you're just tuning in, you got Sean and Raza, Life, Love, and the Grind, and we're hearing from Barry Hohlfelder, producer, writer on WBBM and WMAQ, retired from NABET, a proud union member. And we're talking about the labor movement this whole month of September, and most months we always, proud union members, myself and Raza, and we want to promote what's going on with unions and doing different crossovers between the building trades, construction, NABET workers, and the telecommunications that go behind all these great things like our sporting events, our TV shows, and just kind of the rich history that is Chicago and is the labor movement. And we're going to continue that week after week, and we're proud essential workers, we're proud union members, and we're proud to have Barry, who's collecting a nice retirement and enjoying life, working hard and deserving what he worked hard for.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things that we fundamentally tried to talk about is the investment into the public trust. These journalists who went out there every day and told a story. And Barry, I mean, times have changed. Tell us about what it was like. I know you've covered some pretty major stories from dam bursts to collapses. Kind of tell us what it was like to get those calls when you were Chicago-based at NBC Chicago.
Well, I had the opportunity to work out of the legendary NBC News Chicago Bureau. A lot of great journalists are graduates and alumni of that bureau. We had a territory that stretched into Pennsylvania on the east and to the Continental Divide on the west. And we had, I'm trying to remember, I know we had at least 3 full-time camera crews and at least a half a dozen field producers and as many correspondents.
So you guys used to get on private jets. We're told this is where you're headed. This is a story you're going to get. Tell us about some of that. Tell us about the. I'm guessing it was an adrenaline-filled job, a lot of excitement going in there, and not knowing what city you're going to end up in. It's not like you're going to be dispatched locally. You could end up where, Barry?
Could end up anywhere. I never knew where I was going to fall asleep that night. I had 3 golden retrievers. I had to have a dog sitter on retainer because I'd get a call at work and say you got to get on a plane and go out to Denver in 2 hours. So I'd call my dog sitter and get on the plane. It was really an exciting time. The story you referred to about the dam burst, actually we got word that a dam high in the mountains above Estes, Colorado, near a campground burst, sending water right through Estes, Colorado. Our bureau chief dispatched myself, a correspondent, and a crew to the private charter air site. We flew out to the Denver airport later that morning. A helicopter was waiting for us at that airport, took us up to Estes, Colorado, while I did some research. The correspondent and the crew took the helicopter up into the area of the dam burst to get some visuals. And what we discovered was that the wind drafts up there were plummeting this helicopter around, and it became very dangerous. The guys came back, and they were white-knuckled. And so we did the interviews there, got the other town video, and headed back via helicopter to Denver's affiliate. In the interim, our editor had taken the portable edit pack, which was considerable. I think it was about 12 packing cases on a commercial flight. And he came in and set up at the affiliate, was waiting for us. We got back there, put the story together, did the script, went through script approval, and had the story on the top of nightly news that night. And, you know, then it was back to Chicago, and I was back home in time for bedtime.
So do you think, I mean, you know, you have so many stories and you guys cover so much, and you really kind of, like, you're telling these stories where you're really kind of putting yourselves in danger to get these, you know, top stories. I mean, does everyone really understand how much goes behind all of these all of the stories and all of the stuff that we, as you know, the average viewer is like craving. I mean, we always are craving for the top news. I mean, I'd like to hear your guys' perspective on just really what goes into everything that we all kind of take for granted, as we always need top news, breaking news immediately and as soon as possible. But really, you guys are the ones behind it, kind of risking your lives a little bit just to give us what we want.
Yeah, well, on one occasion, we were doing a story on a farm auction during the 80s, when farms were being sold and families were losing their homes. And I went with one crew.
Jimmy Mack actually had the opportunity to tell me a little about that, but that's a great story. Would love to hear how that played out for you guys.
Well, I went in one direction to get some visual materials from a resource center in Kansas City, and my correspondent, Roger O'Neill, and the crew got in a helicopter to get another location before we both met at this auction. Well, turns out I got a call from the office. Their helicopter crashed, and on takeoff, after taking pictures of this other location, everyone was fine, but when they showed me pictures, the helicopter was on its side and all mangled. And I also remember the story we were doing with helicopters in the Rocky Mountains on the last run of the San Francisco Zephyr. I dropped the crew off at a crossing, and they got on the train to do some shots there, and I was supposed to meet them further on down the line. And most of these copter pilots were old Vietnam War air jockeys, and we're flying to the next location, and I look over, and this pilot is sweating like crazy. Oh. And I said, "What's going on?" He said, I don't know if we're going to make it. We're running on fumes already." And we just barely made it into the helicopter port so we could refuel. But, I mean, it was very close. I've had several close calls with helicopters. I think auto-rotation is a myth, and if I never get on another helicopter again, it'll be too soon.
So how did you deal with going through situations like that, but knowing the next day or whenever else you'd have to get back on a chopper, knowing it was part of your job? I mean, clearly there was no other way to do this at the time. What was that fear like? Or was it something you put in the back of your mind?
Well, adrenaline kind of takes over, and every story is different, and there's always something new and exciting that you're trying to capture, and I think that kind of overtakes any fears you might have about how dangerous it might be. Most of the time, it wasn't dangerous at all. It was just exciting and fun.
And Sean, any?
No, you know what? It's interesting. Like I said, I like hearing these different perspectives. I mean, there's so much that goes behind, like, the most basic of things that we think of with television and radio and everything. But we forget how many thousands of, working men and women kind of keep us all in the loop across, especially now between everything. We're so in the loop across the whole country and world based on television and the workers that make that possible.
Well, and let's take a moment actually to talk about who we have as guests coming up, because again, we are profiling this month the people out there who are putting together or doing the work labor movement. So we do have a few other guests that we're excited about.
Yeah, we'll be having members of other building trades unions, Local 150. We'll have bricklayers unions. Obviously, I'm a business agent with the bricklayers union, and just other communications and hopefully other building trades unions and union leadership, and as well as members. We want to hear from the members, and you know what I like hearing from Barry's side as a retired member that's enjoying life, and we want to hear from the members that are just maybe becoming apprentices or just becoming journeymen in their 20s, and just how important.
Yeah, we always love hearing from the audience who might have questions, because again, we can't be the only ones who have some curiosity into the early world of broadcasting. So if you do have any questions for Barry, we invite you to call in. That number is 773-763-9278. Again, 773-763-9278. We are joined by Barry Hohlfelder, who was a producer, writer for WBBM Radio and WMAQ, retired now, but kind of walking us through the heyday of television news and the coverage that he used to do. Barry, you have some other interesting stories. One related to the Butcher of Lyon. Tell me, what's that all about?
I was low man on the totem pole for a number of months when I first joined the network bureau, and the low man on the totem pole had to run the bureau office on Saturdays and Sundays. We split, but I normally had to operate the office on Saturday, and I got a call from our New York assignment desk saying that they had gotten a letter from a professor at Wayne State University. His name was Erhard Dobringhaus, and he claimed that he had worked with military intelligence after World War II, and noted that Klaus Barbie, the ex-Nazi, the butcher of Lyon, was going on trial in Europe, and he had information that actually Klaus Barbie was on the government payroll after the war as a double agent feeding information to the CIA. And the New York Desk was very interested in this, and so they chartered a Learjet for me. I went into, then we had Meigs Field. Went over to Meigs Field, hopped on my own personal Learjet, flew to Detroit, and met a crew from our New York bureau that was already in Detroit doing a different story. Went over to the professor's house and got some identification of who he was and what he did during the war. Sent that back to New York, and they had our folks in the Pentagon Bureau double check and fact check his ID and all of that. So I did an interview with him right there and fed it in, and New York called me and said, "Well, what do you think? Is he for real?" I said, "I've only known him for like an hour, but yeah, he seems very legit to me." So we went with the story, and it turned out to be true. I got done with that, went back to my Learjet. The crew had gotten me a sandwich tray of my own, and I had a fully stocked bar, and flew back to Chicago all by my lonesome.
So, Barry, where do you see the future of kind of TV and television? Obviously, you've seen it change over the last few decades, but where do you see it going moving forward? Obviously, in a time where there's so much social media and Facebook and really kind of everybody, like me and Raza have talked about it, really everyone with a camera now on their phones just are kind of creating their own stories and their own viral videos with just videotaping everything. Where do you see the future of all this going?
Just about the way you described it. I don't have a healthy view of it at all. I know when I was in the network bureau, we partnered with Microsoft, and they formed MSNBC. And I thought that was the beginning of the end of what we did, and I believe it is truly damaged the credibility of what we were. Now the format is we'll get a headline story, we'll get some video or a soundbite from some politician saying something or someone else saying something, and then they'll bring in a panel to sit and discuss it. That's not news. That's commentary. That's discussion, and that's the direction we're headed. It used to be when I started. Chet Huntley and David Brinkley had the Huntley-Brinkley report. No one knew how they voted. Same thing with Walter Cronkite until he got fed up with the Vietnam War and finally made a statement. But now the term fake news has become so prevalent, and my view is, hey, if it's fake, it's not news. It's propaganda. And people with their cameras can take pictures of anything and then say it's something else. Oftentimes you see on social media pictures of some disturbance or riot, and when it's fact-checked out, it isn't what it's pretended to be. It's a location from a year or so ago. If you take anything off of social media, you've got to fact-check it, because so much of it is fake.
Yeah. And we're going into, I want to say there's almost 1 million podcasts in America. So you have everybody with these microphones and these cameras and, phone cameras and social media. And I mean, it is a changing market. I mean, it is, and it's, you hate to say it's almost non-union scab work, but in a way it kind of is, because you don't have the right professionalism like that the TV and the union members bring to kind of regulate these conditions, and you have sort of kind of everybody with the phone and a camera and a microphone.
Questionable veracity, right? You see this, you don't know, it hasn't been, like you said, fact-checked.
Yeah,
you don't know about the quality of it, and obviously there's a danger in that with the whole meddling from Russia that we heard, and just how easy it is to kind of derail or sidetrack the messages that you get, because again, they haven't been, there's no veracity and they haven't been fact-checked. Barry, what do you think?
Absolutely, and the danger with all of these home videos, if you will, is that you only see a portion of it. You don't get the full picture, and so you don't know what happened before or what happened after what you see in that segment. And they can edit it to look like anything that they're trying to project. But, you've got to be very careful before you buy into anything and everything you see on social media.
Well, and not just that is, not everyone should have a voice. Not everybody should be allowed to have, a voice projecting out to everybody. And you know what? Whether we like it or not, you have these people with their, insane beliefs, and they have millions of followers.
Sean, that's where I kind of, as a journalist, fundamentally disagree with you, because I do kind of believe that everyone does deserve a voice, at least to get that discussion and, dialogue going, because sometimes that truth is out there. It's ugly, but it's still out there. What better way to address it than to have that conversation?
Yeah.
Rebuttal?
I mean, I agree in a way, but I also...
Yeah. You look at some of the videos that have caused people to come to grips with Black Lives Matter, these atrocities where black people are pulled over and end up dying for minor arrest. If we didn't have those videos, that story would not be told.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, again, shining the light on the issues via camera, footage. Obviously, it's changed, everything, because everyone can see everything now. I mean, if anything goes, bad, you have someone with a cell phone camera videotaping it, so you definitely can. It's not just his word versus my word anymore.
Body cam. There's much more accountability in what's going on, because there is no hiding under a rock anymore. It's all out there. It's all exposed, and I think we will talk a little bit more about this after we come back from these commercial breaks.
Megan Financial is an independent retirement and financial services firm dedicated to the working men and women of organized labor. Megan provides straightforward, custom-fit financial advice and specializes in defined benefit and defined contribution pension plans, as well as participant and retiree health and welfare benefits. Megan Financial has the knowledge and experience to navigate the union member through all phases of life. Call 708-444-1090.
Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisors LLC, member FINRA, SIPC, a broker-dealer and registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Office location at 5321 South 94th Avenue, Orland Park, Illinois, 60462.
Hi, I'm attorney Lou Kyra, owner and managing partner of the GWC Injury Law Firm. Over the course of just a few short weeks, COVID-19 has changed our entire world. During this difficult and uncertain time, it is now more important than ever to stay connected and try to help those in need. At GWC, We have the technology and processes in place to do just that. We are still signing up cases remotely and taking depositions and settling cases in order to obtain full, fair, and complete compensation for our clients. We want you to know that our team is working 24/7 to fight for your rights, just like we've been doing for over 40 years. We also want to take this opportunity to give a huge shout out to all of our first responders and healthcare workers who selflessly risk their health every day in order to save the lives of complete strangers. You men and women are the true heroes. From our family to yours, thank you, and please be safe. GWC. For your free remote access consultation, call me 24/7 at 312-999-9999.
Life, Love, and the Grind. This is Raza Siddiqui, joined by Sean Allen. And today we have on the phone with us Barry Hohlfelder, who is a CBS 2 writer/producer, also worked at WMAQ Chicago, now retired, but kind of giving us some perspective into what the industry was like. Barry, I often hear the statement that we live in a society that's information rich, knowledge poor, meaning that there's so much going on out there that it's sometimes hard to decipher the knowledge you need. Sean, before our commercial break, was actually talking about the information, how everyone's got cell phones now, how everyone's putting stuff out, but fundamentally what they don't have that we used to have, especially in broadcast, is that producer who's kind of going through fact-checking, verifying veracity. Nothing gets out there unless we have verified it. Barry, where's this going to go? How do you see this playing out from someone who has been a producer, who has been the guardian of truth for years in broadcast television?
Well, I try to tell people who ask me that kind of question that, we all have to be more skeptical of what we are presented with more than ever. I don't know if most people would not understand what it would take to get a story on any of the network newscasts for CBS, NBC, or ABC. We used to have to go through script approval that was rigorous, and not only was our script gone over by editor, producers, and lawyers, and we had to, dot every I, cross every T, and support every fact that we put in the thing before they would let us put it on the air. I'm sure that still goes on there, but it doesn't go on any of these cable operations. And,
or on any social media outlets. No fact-checking going on there.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine call me a few years ago, all up in arms because he had heard, I think it was the Drudge Report, stating that Barack Obama had just ordered Chevrolet to stop racing in NASCAR. And my friend bought it hook, line, and sinker, and I reminded him that he called me on April 1st, and did he even go to the NASCAR website, the official NASCAR website, to check it out? No, he didn't. And it was a April Fool's joke.
Yeah. And I think that's a very good point in that we used to hear, I know I did, I'm a little older than you, Sean, is don't believe everything that you read. I mean, you gotta verify everything that you're kind of processing. More and more now with so much information coming out there. And we really want to thank you, Barry, for joining us. Barry Hohlfelder, who, again, worked with a couple different stations in the city of Chicago as a writer, producer, essentially was the guardian of truth in terms of getting the information out there. So, Barry, we want to thank you for joining us. And we're going to continue this conversation, Sean Allen and I, about what we anticipate doing for the rest of the month of September. Sean, tell us a little bit more.
I appreciate Barry coming on. And, not only is he, writer, producer, but he's also a proud retired member of NABET 41. So we want to focus this whole month of September, obviously, on the men and women in the labor movement. We just celebrated Labor Day not that long ago. Obviously, this hits home to us. This is the most important thing we have in our lives. As a man like Barry, who's retired and enjoying a nice pension and a nice life, relaxing, I think it's important for him and for everyone else that's coming up in the labor movement that maybe didn't have that many opportunities. Now they're in a position to have a better wage, some health insurance, pensions. We really want to focus on it. And, I have to mention, too, we are just getting past 9/11. This has been, 19 years since the 9/11 terrorist attacks that happened in New York. And now more than ever, we always said never forget, but, we had nurses, doctors, first responders, police, fire, just the community, people charging into buildings, helping each other, and never is it more important than it was then and now of just being an essential worker and really being a part of something where you're putting your life on the line to keep society moving forward. And I really don't know, I know they get credit, but I really just think that the union movement, the labor movement, the men and women that really push our, whole society forward really need to get the credit. They need to get their wages. They need to get their benefits or pensions. They've all fought for it. They've all earned it. And we have to give them credit. We can't take that away from them. I mean, this is such a hot topic now, too, with the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as kind of this somewhat anti-police rhetoric. Obviously, there needs to be change in the police departments, but we also have to never forget that when things go bad, they are the first responders that will be there to kind of help all of us.
Sean, I think you could not have said it any better. I think part of never forgetting is actually actively fighting for these people who are pillars of our community, who always kind of put their safety second to the bigger cause of keeping the community running. And I'm very glad that you made it a point to mention that these are things that we should, and that I know, Sean, you and I and Sarah actively fight for and actively are supporting and supportive as well. Coming up later in the month, like you said, we are going to be profiling other people in the building trades as well regarding some of the work that they do and some of kind of what the trades are all about and what the trades still offer to the community that need to get out there. Because all too often we hear about college, we hear about higher education, because again, these guys have the money to spend and get their message out there. But there's a message to get out there with the trades. And Sean, what's that message?
Well, the message is that there's an opportunity if you don't want to go to college, and that's the biggest one. And I think the big misconception is that no one's joining the trades anymore or joining the union, and that's completely false. We have nothing but great union members. We have nothing but great men and women that want to join every single year, and it's never running out. The only problem is that our average age is about 25 to 35, where it used to be about 18 to 22. So what that tells me is that everyone's going to college, that everybody's joining the military, and then they're coming out and they're realizing that maybe after that bachelor's degree they don't have that opportunity, or they get a job where they don't have health insurance and good benefits, so then they join the labor movement or whatever trade it is later in life. And I really encourage people to get into a union, get in at 18 years old, get in at 19, come out of high school. You're going to be 22, 23, making well over $40 an hour with insurance, pension. We have annuities. These are great careers. These are, zero debt. I mean, you're accruing, thousands and thousands of dollars a year into all your benefits. So we do really encourage everybody to join the labor movement, because it really is the backbone of society. And it's really, not only is it making a comeback, but it needs to make a bigger comeback, because it's really what offers this whole country everything it wants, whether they think it or not. People want universal health care. Well, unions offer that. They want retirement. Well, unions offer that.
Well, and people talk about equality and equity, and unions guarantee that in black and white. I mean, it is in writing.
And female and male.
Exactly. So, irregardless of any other demographical breakdown, you have set in stone what you're going to make. I will say that I took a very different route. I did go to college. I did study and then get into the trades, and was very fortunate to get into a trade that was able to foster me in terms of getting that knowledge as a technician in broadcast. But I think what Sean and I both want to say is listen to the message, decide what's better for you. Kind of take all grains, take everything with a grain of salt, but decide what it is that is going to be better for you in the long run, and get all that message, which you can get on Life, Love, and the Grind. We want to get all that information.
Well, we want to make sure too that, if anyone's interested in a union, whatever kind it is, whether it's teachers, police, fire, the, NABET, the communication workers, building trades. You can follow us on Facebook, Life, Love, and the Grind. You can tune in every Sunday, Life, Love, and the Grind on WCPT 820 AM. You can find us on YouTube. Reach out if you have questions, if you want to be a guest, if you know good guests, please reach out to us. The union movement is everything we stand for, it's everything we believe in, and you'll always get that working class voice every Sunday here, and you can follow and watch reruns of all of our other shows of labor leaders, politicians. At the end of the day, all we care about is the working men and women, and even more now, like I say, essential workers. I feel for everyone who lost their jobs, lost their careers, had to go on unemployment. But for everybody who worked like we have, and the thousands and thousands of others really putting their life on the line every week and every day in a pandemic, you know what? They're not getting any more pay. We're not getting hazard pay. We're not getting anything out of it other than just what we do. And we're not afraid to get our hands dirty. We're not afraid to go and, fight for the movement and stand up for working people, is even in times where we're putting our lives at risk.
And you know what? And I will say I'm very grateful that a lot of our members who work in sports productions, like we talked about, people like Barry, but who are currently out there, covering football, that are out there covering different sporting events, that they're back working. But there's so many people who are not. If you look at the Live Events Coalition, they were pretty much, including IATSE, trade labor unions like this, first ones who were kind of put out with what happened with the pandemic, and will potentially be the last people to go back. So do support them. Do see what we can do to help get them some government subsidies to kind of help them get through this time. It's a very difficult time for a lot of people yet, and we're glad a lot of people are back working, but there are still a lot of people who could use our support.
And if anybody's ever looking for help, I get this all the time, how do I join a union? You got to know somebody. If you're looking for an outlet, please message us. Go on Facebook, Life, Love, and the Grind. You can message us. Myself and Raza, we can help get any trade in contact with any union, and that's what we're doing this show for. That's what we're trying to bring the voice to our retirees, to our apprentices, to our journeymen, and to people that maybe are just listening and thinking, my son may not go to college, my daughter may not go to college, maybe she graduated college and she's not in the career she wants. Please feel free to reach out to us. We are here to help anyone in the unions. If you're non-union, want to join the union, essential workers, union workers, that's the most important thing we have in this city, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Life, Love, and the Grind. Raza Siddiqui, Sean Allen, thank you again, Barry Hohlfelder, for joining us, and thank you guys for all joining us on this Sunday, and look forward to talking to you next Sunday. Bye now.